Yeah, post-credit, here we go. Present time, 12:20 PM. The date was supposed to be Monday, January 17th, 2011. But in reality, it was Tuesday, January 17th, 2012. I could hardly believe it, but I've jumped 1 year into the future. Hey Kokoro, what are you doing in a place like this? I turned around and saw him standing beyond the open door, the official owner of this room, Yukido Satoru. And in the body he officially owned as well. As soon as I thought that, I felt lonely for just a short moment, like I'd been cut in half. Hey, you listening, Kokoro? Yeah. I just thought I'd record for a bit before I forgot. Record? I waved the voice recorder at him. The record button was still pressed down. I hastily hit stop. Are you planning on writing a novel or something? No way. Well then why? I told you, so I don't forget. The days I spent here. That I met Satoru. More importantly, where's everyone else? They went outside a long time ago. They're probably out there, oohing and ahhing over the ocean right about now. Especially Yomogi-san. Then, are you and I the only ones left in SPHIA, Satoru? That's right. I see. I slipped the voice recorder in my pocket and sat down on the bed. I'd probably never return to SPHIA again. With that in mind, I felt slightly reluctant to leave. It was only for a little while, but I'd been living here for 1 week. Hey Satoru, when's the next transfer gonna happen? Most likely not for a while. Maybe in a week, maybe a month, or maybe even a year. I'm not sure, but at any rate, it probably won't happen until after the wreckage of Flight 18 is cleaned up. If not, then I'm sure one of the workers would notice it, and wonder why SPHIA has suddenly jumped to Mount Akakura. However, while we're talking about what happened a year ago, last year's history, there wasn't a single person recorded in that history who witnessed the space-time transfer phenomenon, or else it would have been mentioned already. So at the very least, as long as there's someone on Mount Akakura, no transfers will happen? Yeah, most likely. I see. Hey, this isn't the time to just complacently put an ending to it. So what's going to happen to Uni? Not much, really. The rescue team will arrive, discover him, and take him to a hospital. That's it. The end. Wait a minute. So that means that the only event of Uni being saved will repeat itself the same way again? History most likely has something like a law of inertia too. I'm sure there's some power at work trying its best to make those circumstances occur the same way as before. We've only barely touched on the events that happened in the past. After the avalanche, we gazed at the beautiful scenery for so long we lost track of time, so the 6 of us walked to the shelter cabin. Having wounded his leg, Yomogi had to use Satoru's shoulder for support. We'd been walking at a snail's pace, but somehow we all managed to make it to our destination, and just then, was it because we thought we were safe? As though he couldn't contain himself, Uni suddenly took off running, practically flying over the snow, climbing up the hill all alone. There was no one to stop him. Even Satoru hadn't noticed it. The possibility that a space-time transfer would occur at any given moment. Who'd have guessed? As soon as we realised that the bowl-shaped hollow disappeared right in front of our eyes, and would be replaced by the high wall of SPHIA, Yomogi, Utsumi and Hattori just stood there, as though their souls had left their bodies. And so Uni was left behind, all alone in the shelter cabin. Or rather than left behind, it'd be better to say that he was the only one who went forward. At any rate, he suddenly disappeared from right in front of us. Yomogi and Utsumi reacted first, and took off chasing after him. The one who calmed them down was Satoru. It'll be fine, Uni will definitely be back. Don't worry, I guarantee it. Yomogi and Utsumi were dubious. Aren't there 2 Unis now though? But still, in the face of Satoru's utmost sincerity, they couldn't help but believe him. I didn't hear about this until later, but apparently Satoru had a plan. A way to prove that Uni was alright without explaining a space-time transfer to Yomogi and Utsumi. And that was... It's simple. The Uni at Aosagi Island in 2012. I just need to introduce him to him. As he turned to face me with that statement, Satoru, just as his name implied, looked as if he'd reached a new stage of enlightenment. Satoru. A smile as though he'd broken down every wall. Seeing a confidence that almost seemed to emanate from him, I decided to entrust him with everything. He was my partner, the person I trusted most. There was no doubt he's the best one to handle this. That's what I thought. And with Satoru leading us, we passed through the gates of SPHIA. Since then, 2 space-time transfers had occurred, and now SPHIA was at Aosagi Island of 2012. According to what Satoru said earlier, Yomogi, Utsumi and Hattori had gone out to the coast. I stayed behind at SPHIA to try and sift through the fragments of my memories. And that was when Satoru showed up, and we reached the present. By the way, Kokoro, I have a 3-part question for you. Mind if I ask? Satoru came closer to me, wearing a smile. As the distance between us lessened, I found myself feeling a little flustered. I pulled myself up straight and gently inclined my chin. He walked over to the desk and picked up something lying there. It was the memo pad that we'd used to exchange our messages. Satoru flipped through the pages. I felt very embarrassed somehow, as though someone were reading an exchange diary I kept with my lover, though of course my partner in that diary exchange was none other than Satoru himself. What's the question? As I asked, Satoru tore out a single page and held it up to me. Were you the one who drew this? I couldn't see it very well from here. I got up from the bed and came right up to him. I looked at the piece of paper. There was a single sentence, transfer 1:07 PM, accompanied by some incomprehensible design. Let's see, the letter's at the top of mine, but that thing at the bottom. I swallowed my words halfway. I stared intently at that design. Beyond the chaotically entwined and complex lines, a vague image surfaced. It was the illustration I'd drawn, a picture of an intelligent-looking bunny. I instantly replied, "Geez, Satoru, that's so mean. Why'd you do something like this?" "Something like what?" "You were the one who did all these scribbles at the top, weren't you?" "I put so much work into that drawing too." "Then this... It's not someone's mum and a rabbit who'd been yelling at an aircraft carrier's coming? The aircraft carrier's coming? In high spirits all morning, is it?" "What?" Nothing. At any rate, Kokoro, you weren't the one who drew this freaky thing, were you?" "I drew part of it, but someone scribbled all over it." "I see, that's what I thought. Then the next question." Satoru jumped right to his next question before I had time to interject. "Were you the one who tore up the newspaper?" "What?" "The newspaper that was at the shelter cabin. The one who tore it up." "It wasn't me. I think." "You think?" "I can't say it was with absolute certainty, because when I read the article, I felt kind of distracted." "I see. But that's enough of an answer for now. Now then, my last question. Kokoro, have you had a red dream before?" "A red dream?" "A dream where everything you saw was a gentle shade of red, like being wrapped up in tranquility, melting in a sweet smell. Yeah, like you were drifting in amniotic fluid. A dream like that." I stared into his eyes. It felt like the captivating sparkle of his eyes was about to suck me in. "Yeah, a few times." The reply squeaked out of me, as though I were in a delirium. Satoru grinned in relief. He gave a single nod as though convinced, and then... "Thank you, you were very informative." He tried to end the conversation with that. I hastily tried to say something to quickly reopen the closing curtain. "What? Wait a sec. Don't just act all self-satisfied now that you've got it figured out, tell me too." A smile lit up on his face as he answered, "The time for you to understand will come as well, Kokoro." "The time? When exactly will that time be?" I wonder. I'm pretty sure it'll be in the future though." We stared at each other. The silence lengthened between us. "Well, we should get going. Everyone's probably waiting for us." And with that, Satoru left the room. And left me behind with only an echo of his words hanging in the air. I stood alone in that uncomfortable silence. The alarm clock on the desk continued to tick away the seconds. I took a glance at its revolving hands. It showed the current time, 12:32. "Hey, wait up, Satoru!" I came running out of the building after him. By the time I caught sight of his receding figure, he was almost at the front gate. I finally caught up. I stood behind him out of breath. "You sure are a bundle of energy, Kokoro." He stopped walking and turned to me. "It's astounding that you still have the strength to run." "I do not. I don't, but I hate being left behind. Even though you were alone in my room not too long ago? There's a difference between one staying as one and one suddenly becoming halved, you know? Are you trying to tell me something?" Something deep in my chest gave a jump. The racing beat of my heart, and suddenly, as though resonating with that beat, the sound of a bell resounded. I looked back in search of the source. I realized immediately where the sound was coming from. The clock tower. The tower soared proudly over the earth below, as though perched atop a sacred temple of ice. Thanks to the clarity of the midwinter air, even from far away I could clearly make out the numbers on the clock. The hour and minute hands. They overlapped, pointing directly to the heavens. Huh? What? No way! The words that fell out of my mouth had less substance than a handful of mist. My mind went white. As if to shake off that white shadow, I began to count each toll of the bell. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. After chiming away exactly a dozen hours, the hoarse metallic clanging suddenly stopped. I immediately checked the watch on my right wrist. The analog hands clearly indicated 12 o'clock. What is it? Satoru took a peek at my face. Desperate for something to cling to, I told him what was on my mind. Why is it 12 o'clock? What? But isn't it weird? When I left your room, it was already 12:32. How can it be noon now? Even if you ask me. Yeah, look, it's 12 o'clock on my watch too. As he said that, Satoru took out a wristwatch from his pocket. What's this? Can't you tell it's a wristwatch? I know that much. Why do you have something like this on you, Satoru? Why? Because I went to a shop that sells watches, gave them money and received a watch in exchange. You mean that watch belongs to you, Satoru? Hold on a second. Why are you asking me this? Satoru's head snapped up. It can't be. Don't tell me you've never seen this watch before. You don't want me to tell you? Hey, are you serious? I mean, seriously serious? Yeah, seriously. How in the world were you checking the time at SPHIA? With the alarm clock in your room? I always check the time against that. At my reply, he gave a great shake of his head. And gave a long sigh, and then placed his middle and index finger together and began to tap on his temple with them. And then faced the heavens and stared off at a single empty point in space. All movement stopped. Eventually his gaze dropped back down to my level. This is what you just said, right, Kokoro? It was 12:32 when we left the room. Yes. Where'd you see that time? The watch you're wearing right now, or the alarm clock? Sheesh, so that was it after all. What do you mean by that? In other words, the alarm clock is over 32 minutes fast. If it took us 1 minute to get out of here, then that'd probably add it to exactly 33 minutes, which means that the clock always shows the time 33 minutes later. Then whenever I was at SPHIA, I was always looking at the wrong time. Yeah, probably. Oh, is that right? Rather, was that all it was? I was worried that some other weird phenomenon was starting up or something. A smile jumped to my face as I put both hands up to my cheeks. Satoru stared at me with distant, vague eyes. You don't have a care in the world, do you? He said that. What? I tilted my head slightly, hands still on my cheeks. And without another word, Satoru headed for the gate again. Once again, I'd been left behind. Geez, don't just leave on your own without saying anything. Wait, Satoru. The glittering sun to the south, the brilliant downpour of its light, I ran. I caught up with him and slowed my pace. I started walking by his side. I had to speed up a little to keep up with him. We passed through the open gate. His right leg, my left leg. We stepped across the boundary and out of the circle together. Kokoro and I walked along the beach together, the sound of the waves playing a gentle lullaby. Kokoro took a deep breath of the fresh winter air as though refreshing herself. Her hair blew in the wind. Pushing it back with one hand, she began to walk around and around, drawing a spiral in the sand with her footprints. She was so close that our shoulders were almost touching. If I were to move a little closer, it felt like our arms could entwine. I nonchalantly stepped a little to the side. Still staring at her feet, she closed the distance between us again. There was nowhere to run, because I was the one walking at the water's edge. Suddenly, a remarkably tall white wave broke over the beach. I immediately kicked off the sand and avoided it. When I took a look, her boots had been immersed up to the ankles in seawater. Oh, it's so cold. Such a carefree scene. In front of this ordinary scenario, I unconsciously broke out in a smile. Satoru, they got all wet. She ran over to me, setting up a spray of cold water as she came. She ran up, she grabbed onto my arm. She entwined herself around it. It would be impossible to shake her off. Without saying a word, I started walking again. She put on an innocent smile. I shook my head, amazed. I looked up and saw the serene blue sky overhead, the gentle sunlight, the sound of the waves and Kokoro's warmth on my arm. With the shadow of SPHIA far in the distance, it felt like I could forget everything about the transference phenomenon if I wanted. Eventually. Look, Satoru. There's Yomogi and the rest. She called out to them much more loudly than necessary. Hey, everyone! Kokoro ran over to them, waving her hands wildly, leaving me behind on the beach. I remember what Kokoro had said to me. There's a difference between one staying as one and one suddenly becoming halved, you know? Halved, huh? My muttering floated along the sea breeze and disappeared. Kokoro was now in the midst of a light-hearted chat with Yomogi and Utsumi. A little away from where they stood, Lin and Hattori were visible as well. They were standing side by side, facing out to the sea, quietly talking about something. Lin and Hattori shouldn't be acquainted with one another. What could they possibly be talking about? I couldn't make out anything they were saying from here. By the way, where's Yuni? I scanned the coastline, but I couldn't see him anywhere. Right at that moment, someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around to see him standing right in front of me, as if he'd been waiting for me. He had a self-satisfied grin on his face. You were looking for me just now, weren't you? I kept silent. This Yuni was the Yuni of 2012, the Yuni that knew everything. I opened my mouth, feeling as if I'd surrendered to doing things at his pace the moment I did. Isn't there something you wanted to ask me? He was so much shorter than me that there could be no comparison, but somehow I felt like he was the one looking down on me. It was kind of aggravating. Well, I guess I'd take you up on that offer. Go ahead. Why'd you stay quiet until now? Stay quiet? Don't play dumb. You're the Yuni at the shelter cabin. and also the same uni discovered by the rescue team on January 17th. And before that, you supposedly spent 7 days time with me, Itsumi, and Hattori at SPHIA, which means that at the shelter cabin you already knew everything that was going to happen at SPHIA. And of course, that's not all. You knew everything about the transference phenomenon. If not, you wouldn't have been able to return to Mount Akakura in 2011, would you? Yet in spite of all that, you didn't say a thing. You didn't say a word about the transference phenomenon to either me or Kokoro. Why? But I did. You were the only one I told, right? On the 14th. But that was the 14th, right? That was 3 days after we met, wasn't it? Yep, it was. Hey Uni, come on. There's no need to hide anything anymore, right? Come clean already. Why'd you stay quiet? Let's see. I could tell you, but the answer might be kind of a letdown. Is that alright with you? Yeah. Really? Yep. Okay, then I'll tell you. It's because I didn't want to change the past. Well, the past, or I guess you could say the future. Anyway, I wanted the things that happened in Mount Akakura in 2011 to repeat themselves exactly as they were meant to. In other words, you didn't want to change history. Yep. For that to happen, I tried my best until today. I spent the past year working toward that goal. I studied up on the space-time transfer and made a bunch of preparations, waiting for this day to come. I waited with all my heart for this moment. That's why I knew so much about the transference phenomenon. I see. So you returning to Mount Akakura of 1 year ago was also to retrace history, huh? That's right, because my existence at the shelter cabin in 2011 was essential. Besides, in the first place, if I didn't return to the shelter cabin of 2011, the person who led Seiji and Tobalin there wouldn't exist, right? If that happened, then they would have been lost in the snowstorm after the crash. If I didn't go at the right time on January 11th, they would have died. Naturally, Kokoro would have met the same fate. I see. So you saving them was the beginning of everything, huh? Yep. Now that that's been said, it's hard to condemn all of his actions outright. My mental state became even more complex. Well, okay. I'll acknowledge your bravery in challenging the dangerous time jump phenomenon to save them. But it's still hard to understand why you did what you did after that. Why did you need to make sure history was repeated? Wasn't your objective completed after you led Yomogi and the others to the shelter cabin? Not at all. That was only the beginning. Why did you need to make sure history was repeated? That's what you said just now, right? In short, just so the space-time transfer could occur. The space-time transfer? Yep. If those didn't happen, then Seiji and the others could never be saved, right? That's why. Hold on. Could you explain that in a little more detail? Sure. First, why do you think that the rescue team managed to arrive on January 17th, 2011? It's because the weather improved, isn't it? Of course the weather had something to do with it, but it wasn't just that. Until a certain moment in time, the specific location of the crash site of Flight 18 remained unknown to the government task force headquarters. It was because of a phone call that they found out. The call made from the satellite phone we had in the shelter cabin. If not for that, then I don't think the rescue team on the 17th could have found the wreckage. And naturally, I don't think it would have been reported either. And finally, and this is the important part, the satellite phone we used had connected totally by chance. You understand, right? What chance means? If you don't repeat history perfectly, then the phenomenon known as a miracle becomes impossible to reproduce. So that's why you tried to make sure history repeated at the shelter cabin. To reproduce a miracle. In order for the rescue team to arrive on the 17th. And that's it. But why? Why did the rescue team's arrival have to be on the 17th? Because it was necessary for the discovery of Flight 18 to be reported on that day. Why? Do you want me to tell you? Quit dragging it out. Okay, but in exchange you should prepare yourself. Prepare? Because from now on it has everything to do with you, Satoru. With me? Yeah, that's right. The reason it had to be reported on the 17th is that by the 18th, you wouldn't have been in Japan anymore, Satoru. What are you talking about? You probably don't remember, but you were scheduled to go to Australia on January 18th, 2011. Apparently you were planning to stay there for a pretty long time. Didn't you find the ticket in your room? I did. But why did they give up on going to Australia after learning about the accident? How could they have anything to do with each other? Would it have caused some kind of problem if I didn't stay in Japan? Yeah, too many to even name. First, there's the fact that history wouldn't have been able to repeat if you weren't on Aosagi Island in 2012. And as for the rest you should think about on your own. Huh? After all, this is you we're talking about, Satoru. I shouldn't have to tell you. Wait. It's because I can't remember, even after thinking about it all this time, that I'm asking you. Anyway, that's it, my lips are now sealed. Cut the crap, you think I'll let you do whatever the hell you want? I have a mountain of questions left. Such as, let's see. Who's trying to kill me and why? What is this fucking great plan? What were the contents of the terabyte disk? It's been bothering me all this time, but I never got the chance to find out. You want to know? I told you to quit dragging this out. What should I do? I guess I could tell you, but just hurry up and say it. Satoru, do you know where the disc is right now? Right now? Right now it's not in SPHIA. Then where? On the Mount Akakura of 1 year ago. The uni over there probably has it. That's if he kept it in his pocket, though. Correct. So then, where do you think the terabyte disk will go after that? Let's see, 1 year will pass after that, so do you have it now? Nope, I don't. It's back where it came from. Its starting point. The SPHIA of January 11th, 2012. I don't need to say anything more, do I? In other words, the disc goes round and round between the years of 2011 and 2012. So history will repeat itself, unchanging for all eternity. What? What'd you say just now? Should I say it one more time? No, it's okay. History won't change, that's what you said, right? Yep, that's right. Isn't there a contradiction in what you just said? You said that you had to do such and such to make sure history doesn't change before, didn't you? Well, that's true. That's true, but as far as the end result, history didn't change. Huh? Just what is it you're trying to say? It changed completely, didn't it? Are you saying you can't see them over there? Starting with Yomogi-san, no one got caught in the avalanche and died. That past has been completely painted over, right? You could say that's true, but you could also say that it isn't. For example, and remember that this is just an example, what if no one got caught in the avalanche and died in the first place? That's just an irrational assumption, isn't it? The avalanche did happen, and decomposing bodies were definitely found July last year. It said so in the newspaper, right? But what if that newspaper was fabricated by someone? What? You don't think it's possible for someone to have made a fake newspaper? No way, that's impossible. That magazine had the same article. Are you saying it was a fake too? You can't say the possibility doesn't exist. But if no one died, then there would be no reason for you to reproduce anything to make sure no one died, because no one's going to die anyway. What about Itsumi-san? So you already knew about how the past Yomogi-san had died in the avalanche. I see, that's certainly true. Then I guess history can change after all, huh? Hey, don't just go ahead and say the opposite of what you were saying earlier. In the end, which is it? You've already experienced it all, haven't you? What happened to the history that you know? Did the three of them get dragged into the avalanche and die? Or was it the same as this time, where I ended up saving them from it? Which is it? What should I do? Yuni thought quietly for a while before he finally said this. Last year, on January 17th, the past I experienced at Mount Akakura, it's... Why does he have to be like this? I stood by Utsumi's side and gazed down at the two small lives. Those tiny new lives. The two babies were being held against their mother's breast. They looked barely half a year old. Looking at their pure, innocent smiles, I felt a faint sensation of warmth in my chest. The baby's father was there by their side as well. He wore a gentle smile as he stood with his hands on his wife's shoulders. By the looks of things, he'd already accepted the fact that this was the future. His children had been born and existed right here, so there was no other choice but to believe it. Satoru, who'd been talking with Yuni until just now, was also here by my side. We gazed at the babies without saying a word. I was only looking at them, but for some reason it made me feel extremely happy. My cheeks lifted in a natural smile. By the way, where are the other three? Looking up, I saw Hattori and Yuni a little way off. Yuni was crouching down in the snow, working on a snowman. Hattori squatted next to him, staring at it absent-mindedly. She was wearing a strange smile that I'd never seen on her face before. Mayuzumi was standing apart from everyone else. It might have been my imagination, but I felt like she was intentionally avoiding someone. But who was that someone? Satoru? Mayuzumi's eyes focused on Satoru. Furrowing her brow in suspicion, she stared at Satoru in profile. I looked up to see the sun, which had already begun to sink in the west. The coast was so warm I could hardly think of it as January weather. We savoured the lingering happiness, passing the time as we desired. Give me answers, game. Please? I left Yuni's side and went straight to Utsumi. Utsumi was holding her twin babies against her chest. They were fraternal twins, a boy and a girl. I joined Kokoro and together we gently poked their soft cheeks with our fingertips. That softness suffused me with a sense of warmth that melted all the way to my heart. The two babies kicked their feet energetically. It looked like they were inventing a cute new dance. Most likely they just wanted to play. They might have opened their eyes to a dream while floating in amniotic fluid, spent a few moments innocently playing, trying only to amuse themselves. Innocently, purely, artlessly. With brand new pure hearts, free of ill will, holding no malice and totally without conscience. The babies laughed. Seeing that, Kokoro smiled as well. In my heart, where recurring feelings of both affection and uncertainty. The instant I touched these new lives, I learned to deny the endless circle of life and death. Babies are so cute, don't you think? Satoru and I walked along the coast away from Mitsumi and the others. Yeah, another one-word answer. I got a little sulky. Geez, Satoru, you can be so unsociable sometimes. Is that so? Why are you acting so cold? It's not like I'm trying to be cold or anything. Oh really? It's not what it looks like to me, but I want a baby too. No matter how hard you try, it'll be pretty tough to do with only one person. You're right. Then Satoru, will you help me? You didn't bring me here just to tell me that, right? Of course not. Then what is it? Well, there's something that's been bothering me. What is it? It's about Hattori-chan. I see. Now that you mention it, I haven't told you yet, have I? Did you see the young woman's corpse buried in the snow near the shelter cabin? Yeah, I did. You see, she was the real Hattori. What do you mean? He began to explain, while poring over the vast archive of video records. Satoru had realised that the Hattori he interacted with was completely different from the one I knew. He said that the consciousness residing in her were clearly different. The most striking disparity could be seen during Inamoto's murder. The Hattori who asked Satoru to stab or to be stabbed, which one do you prefer, and the Hattori who was terrified at the sight of her own blood-stained body. Satoru had no doubt it was the result of two different personalities being in control of the same body. And there was one more. The Hattori who rammed into Inamoto and was innocently playing in the pool of blood. There seemed to be a different personality from the others, according to Satoru. And finally, Satoru said, I think Hattori was dragged into the transference phenomenon the same way it happened to you and me, and the third personality. In the end, she settled into the body of Inabushi Kaiko. But then what about the consciousness of Inabushi herself? She's at the Mount Akakura of 1 year ago, inside that corpse, buried in the snow. I see. But even though I said that, the explanation didn't satisfy me. Something's off. It's strange. Why is the one at Mount Akakura Inabushi and the one at Aosagi Island Hattori? Each consciousness was always tied to a specific area. If that's the case, the Hattori I know is currently... Before I could think, I was up and running. Hey Kokoro, where are you going? I heard his voice from behind me, but I didn't have time to answer. I had to find her. I had to hear it from her myself. I rushed over to Yomogi and Utsumi. Utsumi was only holding one of the babies. Where's the other one? That bothered me, but I believed my first priority was to find Hattori. Where's Hattori-chan? I asked. If you're looking for her, she's right over there, see? He pointed behind me. I turned around. Kagame, Kagame, the bird within the cage. When will you come out? In the evening, lit by the dawn, the crane and the turtle slipped and fell. Who's that behind you? Cool. After being left behind by Kokoro again, I reluctantly trudged back up the path I'd come. After a few steps, I saw the back of someone whom I'd been missing for the longest time. Well, even though I said missing her for the longest time, I guess I did see her several times over the last week. She stood there all alone on the beach. Mayuzumi Lin, the woman I was once together with. I've yet to talk to her since I returned to my own body. It's been a long time since we've held a conversation where I was in my own body. My heart beat faster and faster as I walked over to her. She began to turn around. I looked into her eyes as if trying to sense how she felt. What should I say? I couldn't find the words to address her with. The words that finally slipped out of my mouth were, "Long time no see, Lin." From my point of view, I know I've already seen her many times from inside that borrowed body, but concerned about putting even more pressure on her psyche, I decided that long time no see was the most appropriate phrase to use. She didn't respond. With her eyes narrowed, she stared at me as though trying to read my thoughts. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? A stare of open disdain. Her expression was so cold I could feel it freezing me all the way to my heart. A feeling that something bad was about to happen overwhelmed me. My heart frantically pounded in my chest. Time stood still. I couldn't even hear the sound of the waves anymore. Within that tense silence, she opened her mouth ever so slightly, and when she spoke, she said, "Who are you?" The words completely stunned me, almost as if I'd been handed a death sentence. "You're not Satoru. You're not the Yukido Satoru I knew." In an instant, the colour drained out of my world. Is the one she knows is the one that murdered us. No, what? No. What? Oh, I see. Jesus. Well, I guess that's not the proper ending either. Shit. I'm not too sure then. Alright, well, I'm going to break this one up here. I'll break this into 2 episodes because it's pretty long. And I'll try and figure out how we can get further in the next one. But yeah, shit. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, Bruce, and I'll see you in the next one.